car. What it's like seeing your handiwork hit the straight at 300 kilometers per hour.
I always try and instill onto everybody's philosophy that this component is in your car and you're going around the circuit at that sort of speed. You have to look at it, that people's lives rely on that.
And getting ahead in Formula One. How baseball caps help win you points. But first, the championship. Arrows arrived in Hungary, having just secured their best finish of the season in Germany. Pedro de la Rosa drove superbly to finish in 6th place. He was running 3rd, but lost places after a runoff towards the end of the race.
Very happy for the team. We've worked very hard to get reliability good, and finally we have it. What a race, I mean, what can I say? You've seen it better than me.
Jos Verstappen made it to 6th place too before pushing too hard and coming off in the wet on lap 39. In the season so far, Jos has overtaken more cars than any other driver in the championship. His nearest rival in the overtaking league is his teammate Pedro. There's no doubt the Arrows have one of the fastest cars on the circuit. Going into the Hungarian Grand Prix, Arrows lie 8th in the Constructors' Championship and the drivers are equal 13th in the Drivers' Championship. The Hungaroring has hosted the Hungarian Grand Prix since 1986. The 4-kilometre circuit is a slow one, with an average speed of around 180 kilometres per hour. It's also a difficult track to overtake on, which won't suit the Arrows drivers, neither with the heat.
Very difficult for the driver. Normally into the high 30s in temperature, cockpit, very low speed, therefore there's no great relief.
Massive downforce. No high-speed corners, no high-speed running whatsoever, no overtaking.
It's always very low grip when we start. Our circuit's quite dirty, you get a lot of sand on the circuit. And through the day, the track gets better and better.
Drivers accelerate to 280 for the starting straight, then brake to 120 for turn 1. Through 2 and 3 into a short straight taken at around 270. Past 4 into 5 at 130. The cars loop round past a Silver One stand into a chicane at 90 kilometres per hour. Accelerating out, drivers reach speeds of 190 into the corners by the standing place. Next is a sharp right-hander, hitting 170 kilometres per hour. The corner at the next silver stand is slower, 140, and at a hairpin right behind the paddock, drivers slow to 90 kilometres per hour before looping back round a final corner and hit 280 as they fly past the start-finish line.
The low speeds mean the car doesn't cool as well as normal, so getting the bodywork right to keep the engine cool will be a priority.
You need to make the car have the ability to ride some of the curbs. Some of the curbs are quite severe to get a flow through the twisty parts.
The slow circuit will make life difficult for the Arrows A21 car.
Hot, slow, high downforce. Bad for our car, really.
The Hungaroring circuit lies in a natural valley in the hills surrounding the Hungarian capital of Budapest. The city loves its motor racing, and at the first Grand Prix at the track in 1986, 260,000 fans turned up over the weekend. Arrows remember the circuit fondly. Tom Walkinshaw, running the team in his first year, almost had a victory here in 1997, when Damon Hill took 2nd place after leading for most of the race. A superb result for the Arrows in their blue and white livery.
That particular car suited this circuit particularly, and the tyres it was on at the time, the conditions just suited the car perfect. This was the only race they could have done that at, and they did.
Yeah, quite a lot of oversteer on power.
But this year the team know they have a tough weekend ahead. As they begin Friday practice, they're aware that the current car is not as well matched to the low-grip, high-downforce circuit.
A lack of rear grip.
This place hasn't got that much grip in the tarmac. The tarmac's quite old, so the car slides around a lot, so you bolt as much downforce as you can on the car. And here you need stability on turning as well as mid-corner grip. So there is little subtle changes there to the spring rates and anti-roll bar rates, but the big difference is the downforce.
Another challenge is the heat. It's 37 degrees Celsius in the car cockpit, and drivers load themselves up with up to 3 litres of extra fluid before the race. The cars need extra cooling too. At the end of each practice run, the mechanics put dry ice into the side pods of the cars to prevent the engines overheating.
Not a lot of air goes to the radiator. You've got a lot of front wing on the car. The radiator doesn't work as efficiently. The ambient is very hot, the track temperature is very hot.
Under pressure, the engine water temperature can reach 150 degrees Celsius. By the end of practice, Pedro is running quicker than Jos. He's the only driver using harder compound tyres. They have slightly less grip but stay in optimum condition for longer. They're also better suited to Pedro's driving style.
I've tried to concentrate with my engineer on making the car quite nervous on the turning in, quite sharp, so at least you have a quick car into the corner, and then with new tyres you get quite a good traction. So that's why I think my time is a little bit better than Josh, who opted for a softer tyres and more understeer car, and I just hate understeer.
The Arrows race team numbers about 60, but back at base, TWR in Leafield, Oxfordshire, around 200 more employees work on designing and building the F1 cars. Most lunchtimes, machine shop manager Gary Andrews gets out into the Oxfordshire countryside for some marathon training. Back in the office, he oversees the manufacture of parts for the A1 car.
A Formula 1 car is made up of lots of parts. On average, the machine parts would probably number between 3,500 and 4,000 parts per car.
The process begins with machine operators interpreting a 3D computer model of each component. Car parts they may be, but to Gary, they're objects of beauty. Titanium, as strong as steel but half the weight, is just one of the metals used.
The person manufacturing that component stands by his machine all day long and has to generate each part of that component on his own. We're very lucky to have a very small manual section, but of a high skill level.
Andy Cross is one of those skilled craftsmen. He's a lathe operator who makes many of the car's manually turned components. But although it's all done by hand, he has to make each part to very exact specifications. He can only be out by a tiny amount, known as a tolerance level.
You're given a dimension, say like 10 millimetres, and around the 10 millimetre you have a tolerance. Say if it's plus or minus 0.1 of a millimetre, you're allowed to go 9.9 of a millimetre to 10.1 of a millimetre. So everything has to be kept within tolerance, otherwise you find people get to put the components together and they won't fit.
We work within microns, which is a lot smaller than a human hair, basically. You're talking in sizes of dust particles. To the extent with some components, you could hold them in your hand and the warmth generated would make them fail inspection, where they expand.
This is a carrier plate. The enjoyable thing about this, it's made out of a very difficult material, titanium, but as you can see, there's some very intricate little shapes and pockets. They're there for no other reason than to take extra weight out of this component. Formula 1 cars have to run on a very strict weight limit. This component has been manufactured to put a car onto the circuit that can do in excess of 200 miles an hour. I always try and instill onto everybody's philosophy that this component is in your car and you're going around the circuit at that sort of speed. You have to look at it, that people's lives rely on that.
Failure of a single component could mean the difference between life and death for the driver. The Arrows workshop also manufactures parts by computer, a process known as CNC, computerized numerical control. The computer-driven machines come into their own when parts need to be mass-produced to very exact tolerances and very complex designs. However the parts are made, there's satisfaction in a job well done.
It's good that you can manufacture a lot of components for the F1 cars, and then at your weekends off you can sit back in your armchair and think, I made something for that F1 car. It is job satisfaction.
I've been very, very fortunate to actually work for a team that have won 2 World Championships and are constructors. For manufacturing facilities like ourselves, the manufacturing championship is ours. We love that. My next aim is to make sure that Arrows moves on and at least takes one of those championships. We have the facility, we certainly have the people, and until we've won that, I'm not going to give it up.
Once the car's constructed, it's Mark Lenton who helps keep it running the way his driver wants it.
My job is number 2 mechanic on Jos Verstappen's race car, which consists of looking after everything from the chassis where the driver sits back. My only Formula 1 experience is with Lola, but Lola was a stillborn Formula 1 company which only did 2 races. We all got made redundant in Brazil, and while I was in Brazil I used my initiative and went next door to where Arrows was and asked if there's any positions going, and I basically got a job there and then, and the following race I was working for Arrows. There's not many teams like Arrows left. We do take our job very seriously, but people from the outside looking in probably think we're not taking the job seriously. We do have a very good time, and we have got a very good crew of people which we must keep together. When I have my day off, I try to do everything but playing with cars. I like gardening and a bit of DIY, and by the time you've done that, your 2 days is over, so you're back into the treadmill again. The worst thing about the job is probably going away from home. You are away from home so much, and then on your only days you do come back, you seem to be on a catch-up period for a day, just getting everyday life back into order. If I didn't have support from my wife and from my children at an extent, I don't think I could do this job. I would like my sons, if they wanted to be in the same type of profession, maybe a building job in the factory or design or development type of job, because it is a very good career.
Saturday, qualifying day at the Hungarian Grand Prix, and as pre-qualifying practice gets underway, there's relief all round that for the first time in weeks, rain and variable weather conditions will not be a worry.
It's nice to have a stable session. I mean, so often this year we've had rain coming halfway through a session or at the beginning of a session, and you find it difficult to get a feel for where the circuit or the car is when the conditions are changing all the time.
But it's still not an easy day for Graham. There's a little friction between him and Pedro as they push for the best possible car setup.
What are you doing with the front tires?
I'm going to put the qualifying front tire.
I want to try the second run with the tires I have to see if the second run is quicker. That's what I said to him. Do whatever you want apart from that's all.
But we've already done that test and we proved that it was quicker. Okay, we'll put 12s back on the front, please.
Team boss Tom Walkinshaw wants Pedro to try different tyres too.
Ferrari is just doing that, McLaren is just doing that. Don't you think? No, that's what I wanted to do, and he's changed his mind. He wants to see it. So I said, well, do what he said.
The way that I try and work with the driver is is to work very much hand in hand. There has to be a lot of trust. And when he's doing his job in the car, he has to have the trust in me to do my job outside, so he can just concentrate on his bit, on the steering and the pushing of the pedals, whilst I'll do the decision-making on setup.
These fronts have done 17 laps now, so it's a bit unrepresentative of what you have in qualifying.
We have our ups and downs, like any pair, but he's very tough, and I'm also very stubborn. So sometimes we crash, we clash. You know, our opinions are different, and it's quite funny. But at the end of the day, we both fight for what we think is better for the team. So it's good.
Difference is settled. It's 1 o'clock and time for the hour-long qualifying session to begin. Within Arrows, there's healthy competition between Pedro and Jos and their teams of mechanics. The race engineers enjoy the rivalry too.
The first person to beat is always your teammate, and Chris is my teammate, and I've got to be better than he is doing his job. He's got a lot more experience in Formula One than I have. He's very, very good at his job.
Because the third is much too long.
Qualifying is difficult for both drivers today. The car, fast on the straight, is not ideally suited to the Hungarian circuit.
It's not good. I want to change the up ratios as well because they're very bad.
Jos Verstappen qualifies 20th on the grid for the second time in the season.
Always looking the inside front. But that's, and then I tried to go to the rear with brake coming too late.
Pedro in 15th is philosophical.
I think that for the car we had and the conditions we had, 15th on the grid is good. It's good, and especially the my crew did a great job. They gave me a very good car, and we did a good job. We don't have to feel depressed or nothing. I mean, I just think there will come other better races.
After the previous week's successes, qualifying so low down the grid is a disappointment. But with two of the best overtakers in Formula One driving for the team, there's still plenty of hope. In the modern world of Formula One, a team like Arrows can't simply concentrate on racing. Promoting the team is vitally important too, if they are to keep sponsors interested. And branded clothing has become an important aspect of raising the team's profile.
We have two arms. We have a merchandise arm, which is a commercial arm, and then we have team kit, which is actually what the team actually wear when they're going to the circuit, what they travel in and what they work in.
By promoting the merchandising arm, Arrows are determined to increase their own profile with Formula One supporters.
Is it? It's a bit tight.
Yeah, it feels all right.
It's Lisa Palmer's job as merchandise and licensing manager to develop functional attire for the team and fashionable styles for the fans. She attends a planning meeting with marketing and branding managers to agree styles for the Arrows team, while ensuring that sponsors' logos and images are prominent and clear.
It's quite funky. The only thing is that one of the reasons for having the orange on there is to be able to pick out an Orange Arrows member of staff on TV and crowd. So from a aesthetic point of view, it's not too bad.
That's the one I picked. They will find it very hard to do.
Finding the right design takes time, but the Arrows merchandise range will need to consider fashion as much as function. To keep up with the latest trends, Lisa scours the catwalks and the trade shows.
The reason we're at this show is really to check out the marketplace, see where trends are going and what's new for next year, because the range that we hope to pull together should be for the high streets as well as for F1 fans.
These fans include a large number of young women who make up the fastest growing sector of F1 viewers, but men still account for the largest proportion.
The key market for us as a young, challenging, modern team in Formula One is probably about 25 to 35 males. We've done some research and we know that there's an attraction to females, to women, there's an attraction to older blokes. Some people are fascinated by the technology, some people are fascinated by the teamwork, some people, I have to say it's mainly women, are fascinated by the individual gladiators who are driving these cars.
Formula One merchandising allows the fans to feel part of the team. Along with caps and t-shirts, Arrows have jackets, bags, sunglasses, mugs and more available to buy.
One of the problems that I think Formula One has is it's very difficult to allow fans and supporters to really participate and know that they're being part of it, rather than just being spectators kept at a distance and supposed to watch from afar. I mean, my job as head of marketing here is to allow us, to allow our fans and our supporters to feel more part of Formula One than any other team's followers.
Merchandise is very important in F1. One, the fans actually want the merchandise. Two, it's a very good revenue stream for the teams. And three, it's very good publicity really for the teams.
We're doing merchandise to make money, to help the team race better and perform better. About 9% of the retail value of all our merchandise will be profit. And that 9%, maybe, what, 150 or something on a t-shirt, will go into helping the race team perform better.
So, buying that t-shirt or baseball cap will not only make you look good, it will help get the Arrows on the podium. Race day at the Hungarian Grand Prix. Getting the A21, a car good on long straights, set up for this slow, winding circuit, has been difficult. But it doesn't mean the Arrows are giving up. They're still as competitive as ever.
2 in the top 10 would be nice. I mean, just get 2 to the finish, particularly in this heat. It really is incredibly hot now.
The drivers line up, ready for battle. Jos is 20th on the grid, Pedro 15th. Pedro's race is almost over on the first lap when Jacques Villeneuve in his BAR runs into the back of him. Pedro rushes to the pits for repairs to his rear wing and to change a punctured tyre. Jos has a better start, overtaking to 13th place, but almost loses it after a brush with Johnny Herbert. Both Jos and Pedro go on to finish the race in 13th and 16th place. They're not in the points, but with both cars finishing, it's a win for the A21's reliability.
It's better always to have these problems in races where we are not competitive. That's the only positive view of all, and the other positive conclusion of the weekend is that both cars arrived to the end, so we are quite reliable. That's also quite encouraging.
Next time, the alternative Grand Prix around a supermarket in Belgium.
We've got our fuel load actually on board, so we're going to go completely, hopefully do the shop in an hour flat without any pit stops.
And the secret of Pedro's success, his personal trainer reveals all.
Reading a driver's state of mind is a very acquired art, really. It's a marriage.